What's up, fight nerds? UFC 266 is in the books. About a couple of days ago. Wanted to get into it. Tons of great fights, definitely worth the money, all the way down to the prelims. So without further ado, let's get into some of these fights and what are going to be the repercussions for some of these fighters afterwards. Let's get into it. First fight to talk about, Chris Daukaus versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. Hope I'm saying that right. That was actually in the heavyweight division. Now, Chris Daukaus is actually a fan favorite, especially of my editor. Loves that guy. Pretty fast hands for a heavyweight, moves around very well. Now, he got the finish in this one, but I will say that how he did it was a little weird because he wanted the knockout. He wanted to get that rather quickly. And actually in some of his other fights, he said he didn't like that because he was not able to show everything else that he was able to do. Understood. Now, he had already knocked Shamil down before, so he was trying to get it again to finish it. The problem is he kept trying to do it with his rear hand, right? The backhand, trying to just get the power. The problem is like, you should just set it up. And he wasn't setting it up. And obviously, someone's gonna see this coming over and over again unless you set it up with something. He just wasn't doing it. He could have got this knockout, the second knockdown, much quicker had he just set it up. And that's I bring that up because at the end of the match, they asked, who you want to call out, right? And he said Stipe or the winner of Jairzinho and all that. And to be honest, those guys are not going to let him get away with something like that. So you got to fix that type of mistake. Set those punches, utilize that jab just a little bit more, and then I think he'll be really good. But we don't really know where his wrestling and all that is yet. So I guess we'll have to see about that as well. But yep, hats off to Chris Daukaus. This fight is between one of my favorites, Dan Hooker and Nazrat Haptoraz. Hopefully I said that right. I probably didn't. But that fight was obviously anticipated because both of these guys had visa issues. Nazrat losing his mother. Tons of stuff behind this fight. New Zealand doing all types of crazy stuff instead of kickboxing, now allowing them to train, all that. So tons of things in this fight. People were just worried if these guys were even going to show up. And they did, and they made weight. So these guys are true warriors. Now in this fight, right in the beginning, I'll say the first maybe 2 minutes of the round kind of went the same way. It was almost like a repeat. You had Dan throwing a straight right. He did a low leg kick to the body, and another straight. And then Nazrat would literally just combat with with two quick hooks, and they literally just did the same thing around the ring for a while until Dan Hooker was like, you know what, let me try to change the complexion of this fight, and went for a takedown. Now at first, I don't really know how I feel about that because his entries aren't the best, and the way he was, he's a taller guy, so he has to kind of get himself below the hips of Nazrat, that means you're gonna have to set those shots up with some punches to make sure that he stays upright before you get down there, because you don't want him to put his hips down and you saw actually his head, his back was in this weird angle. You don't ever want to be like that, especially grappling with a shorter person. You're not going to be able to get him down. Eventually, he did a really cool shot that landed him in an angle, so where he kind of scooped himself underneath and then was able to get him down with a slam, which was pretty awesome. And then showing how he can keep Nazrat down there and hold him. So it's cool to see that he kind of showed that he's a little bit more well-rounded, and I appreciated that. But the entry just got to get a little better, because another thing, Nazrat is not an amazing grappler, because even when this dude was on his back, he wasn't even grabbing he wasn't fighting the hands. He was doing a lot of amateur mistakes, which if Dan Hooker or anyone else, he would have submitted him super fast. So he's got to improve those things, because if he goes against another grappler that's much more seasoned doing those things, it's really not going to work out well. But good on Dan Hooker for coming, put on a performance, and actually showing us something new about him. That's awesome. Last fight of the prelims was Marabu Valesvili and Marlon Moraes. Now, Marlon Moraes did what he normally does, which is start very hot. And he literally almost finished Marabu in the first, but Marabu stuck it out, literally was holding on for dear life, and managed to reverse the entire situation with a takedown and just wore Marlon Moraes down. Now, Marabu is not really a power puncher on the feet or even on the ground, because he's more about volume. And Marlon Moraes was hit with so many shots. I believe it was 190 something shots, or 90 something, one of those two, not being returned while getting hit, all those things. And it's nuts, absolutely nuts. But Marabu is really a machine. I always knew, I remember going into this fight thinking, all right, if Marabu wins, it's going to be by decision. But then when I saw this, I'm like, oh God, he's gonna get knocked out. It's crazy because Moraes, he's sharp. That's a dangerous dude. But then watching Marabu come back like that, awesome. And he's going to be a guy to give people trouble because he's getting better and better and better. He has a crazy gas tank. He's very technical. He's extremely strong in a grappling situation. You see him, like, he'll do tons of hammer fists and everything down there, but it doesn't really affect people. But it's just like, he'll keep you down there. He's super strong enough because you're not going to get up. If he gets you down, you're usually not getting up. And that's dangerous in itself. We know how dangerous wrestlers are, right? So, you know what? Good on Marabu, and I can't wait to see who he goes against. Even though his guy, Aljamain Sterling's in the same division, so I wonder if that fight will ever happen. Probably not. All right, so on to the main card. What do we have here? We have Cynthia Calvillo versus Jessica Andrade. Now, this was pretty simple. Andrade known for her power, and Calvillo, I guess her plan was kind of to stay outside and maybe switch to maybe like a grappling situation maybe, but it just didn't work out because Jessica Andrade, her power just immediately just shut off some lights right there, because now she didn't knock out Cynthia Calvillo, but as soon as the first punch landed, you saw Cynthia Calvillo's eyes light up, and immediately, like, everything just broke down from there. And she was not able, she was outclassed kind of just by the power, not necessarily by anything technical, but Andrade was able to pretty much impose her will until she was able to get her up against the fence and TKO her. Now, what should happen next for Andrade? I don't know, because she just got beat up by Valentina her last match. It wasn't close. They're not going to give her that anytime soon, which is probably why she called out Rose or Wei Li in 115. She's in a very weird spot. She's got some victories on there in multiple divisions, but it's an odd thing. So I really don't know what's going to happen next for her, but whatever it is, it should be pretty exciting. Next fight, Curtis Blaydes versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now, I didn't expect this to be super exciting. I knew this was going to be more of a wrestling versus striking thing because, to be honest, even though Blaydes has improved somewhat in the striking department, that's not his bread and butter. His bread and butter is to be able to weigh you down, grind you out. And he did it against a person who really doesn't have much takedown defense anyway. And we could see it by how he was kind of getting ragdolled there. So Curtis Blaydes played to his strengths, which he's supposed to. Did it make for an exciting fight? No, a lot of fans probably didn't dig it because it was kind of slow and plodding in the beginning. Jairzinho did get like a flying knee, which gave him the best shot of trying to win and even like close up Curtis Blaydes' eye. But Curtis Blaydes just kept his composure and it did what he needed to do to win. That's all you could really ask for from a fighter, honestly. So, good on Curtis Blaydes. The next, and actually the first of like pretty much the final three matches on the main card would be Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. Now, this is obviously a rematch from like 11 years ago, right? Nick Diaz has come in, and obviously a lot of people were worried because Nick Diaz was pretty much saying, like, I don't know what I'm doing here, and he seemed less than enthusiastic to take this fight, and Robbie Lawler seemed to be kind of geared. Also, they switched weights last minute from welterweight to middleweight, so it just seemed like things weren't really coming together for Nick Diaz. And you know what? It kind of showed up later on, and maybe a lot of people were right about being worried about what was happening in the beginning. Because even though this match was a great match while it lasted, right? Nick Diaz still looked pretty crisp. Now, did he look a little, was there some rust? A little bit. You can see in some of his movements. But in terms of him, his striking backing up was still superb, still super accurate in terms of what he was doing to Robbie. And Robbie was doing the right thing by going to the body, then going to the head, going to the body, legs, body. He was like diversifying his strikes, which I love that a lot of people don't do. And Robbie, a lot of people he was the favorite for, not just because of he was more active, but because when it comes to rematches, he constantly gets those back. And you know what? He got this one back tonight as well. Knocked down Nick Diaz. He refused to go down, told Nick Diaz to stand up. Nick Diaz didn't stand up. I guess he just knew he was finished. He was finished up here. Nothing to be ashamed of if you know this guy's got your number. It is what it is. Most people just aren't man enough to do that, and he did. He knew what was going on. It looked like his mind was never really in it. You heard it in that fight. It felt like it would sound like, it was rushed. He said he didn't know how the fight was put together. It might have seemed like gibberish to a lot of people, but this was his honest feelings about how this fight came together, and it is what it is. Robbie got the W. I hope we see more of Nick Diaz. I'm not sure who he would fight after that. I'm not sure if he's even interested in fighting after that. I guess that remains to be seen when we see the coming stuff later. On to the co-main, Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. Now, to a lot of people, when they saw this, they kind of figured this was a foregone conclusion, just based off of Valentina's dominance. And even though Lauren had a great story coming into this, having like 5 fights in a row and, overcoming adversity, that doesn't always translate into your ring performance, which it didn't. Because, to be honest, for me, I always knew this was going to go the way it did, because even if you just look at the way they hit mitts, and I get it, everyone looks great hitting mitts, but there's just some things technically you can see that one person had, the other one didn't. Like, Lauren always seemed really stiff in the shoulders, nothing really really flows with her versus Valentina, like the way she moves, the way she snaps. Her whole repertoire just doesn't. I mean, when I saw Lauren Murphy versus, I believe it was Joanne Calderwood, I watched that fight. I was like, oh man, this is not going to be good for her. And it wasn't. She was outclassed the entire time. Valentina is a bit of a counter striker, so I guess she was expecting more. She even said that in a post-fight interview. She was expecting her to come at her more, which she knew she would counter, which she did counter as much as she gave it, but it was a lot of times it looked like a bit of a staring contest because after Lauren Murphy did come in a couple times and she got punished for it by the right. She hit her with this right hook so many times. She was like, I don't know if I want to do that. All right. And eventually it was a right hook that made her hit the floor. Literally, her hands touched the floor. Valentina waited until those hands were off the floor, hit her with a left head kick, which was what she was waiting for the entire time, and just hit her with a barrage of punches, which led to her taking her on the ground and then finishing it there for a TKO. Now, what's left for Valentina in this division? I don't know. I mean, at this point, they're going to have to start picking people from like below the top 5 because she's beat so many of them. Like, you know, Alexa Grasso, no, they really want to get her there, and she'd probably have a all right chance, but she's evolving, and the division, you know, no. So everyone's saying maybe she should go against Nunes. But it's weird because she, like she said herself, she walks around at 135. Nunes walks around at, you know, 150, 160, and she cuts down. So she'd be undersized there. It's been a while since their last fight, so we'll be interested in seeing it. A lot of people believe that she won a second fight. I mean, and I can see the argument for that. So that's really one of the only fights where she's actually looked human in. So that's why people are just kind of looking towards that, because it doesn't seem like anybody in her division is catching up with her anytime soon. And that's a credit to her, her coaching, and all that. So once again, good on Valentina. For the main event, which I was very excited for, which had a ton of build-up, obviously, from their stint on The Ultimate Fighter. You know, they were doing a whole bunch of pranks, and even during like all the the pre-fight stuff and the conference, you know, they're talking all this stuff together, and it seemed to get kind of personal, heated, or I don't really like him or whatever. They didn't really say anything too bad, which let me know like it was just, you know, maybe just being in a house with someone who you know you're gonna fight for a while, like it just didn't sit well. Even though Alex was like, you know, I don't really like the guy, whatever. It just added more to sell the fight is what it was, right? But for me, I have liked Alex Volkanovski since he's come into the UFC. And he did it for the short guy, because I'm a short guy, right? And he fought exactly the way which I love. He diversifies his strikes. He goes leg, body, leads you in with the jab. Everything that I like from striker, and it's probably because, you know, he's training with the city kickboxing guys too, and their feint game and everything is just amazing. And it showed here in this match because Brian Ortega is an improved version of himself. He isn't the same one that fought Max Holloway. But when everybody thought that what he did to Zombie was going to happen here, but it's not, because Zombie doesn't move that much. He's kind of flat-footed. He just kind of plods forward, which makes it easier for you to kind of take advantage of him. That's not Volkanovski. He's not staying in one spot. He's not making it so you can hit him. He's moving around. He's doing feints. He's confusing you. And he did like some really cool stuff where he kept leg kicking Ortega. Ortega would, you know, try to close the gap, and then bang, get hit with a jab. And it's like, all right, what am I doing now? Then you try to change the angle. He's going right for the body. Another leg kick. Just confusing you, throwing so many feints and making the brain just go absolutely nuts. And then whenever, like, let's just say it wasn't enough for him to throw a jab, like say it wasn't quick enough, he would post right on his forehead. Like you saw like many times where he would just have his whole palm on his forehead, just stop him right in his tracks, which is that seems like such a little thing, but just disrupts the flow of the other fighter. And that's an amazing striking technique that people need to use more, especially him being the shorter fighter. But obviously he has good reach, which it works well, but him being the shorter fighter and having like the upward advantage, it was an amazing thing to see. And this guy has a crazy resume. Like, he's beaten Holloway twice. I mean, you could have your thoughts on the second one. It is what it is, but he's beaten him twice. He's beaten Jose Aldo, like 2 of the best featherweights ever, and a ton of others that are on his resume. And now Brian Ortega, who is considered one of them. So what else does he need to do for people to respect him? Because a lot of people just didn't like the fact that he beat their fan favorite in Max Holloway. And I get it, but you got to move past that. Look at how skilled he is. Like, he's got a great personality. He's always had a great personality. He just showed it more. So it's like, come on, what else can you really ask for? He beat the guy you like for a long time. Sure, I like Max Holloway too. But hey, it is what it is. There's a lot of greatness here. So, man, no pun. I know he's out getting the great, but I'm just saying. There's a lot of greatness that happened. And we got to give respect. Don't wait until after they're gone to be like, oh, you know, he was pretty good. Give him respect right now, right? What was even crazier in this fight was he got put into a guillotine, a deep guillotine after getting knocked down, which most people wouldn't have even got up from. And then he got put into a triangle after that, and he got out of that one too. So it was absolutely nuts. And then he almost finished him. That was the third round. In the fourth round, he almost finished him again. This dude, Brian Ortega, had to get put into his chair. So it's like, it's crazy because Brian Ortega is taking a lot of damage. Like, he's taking a lot of damage. The last 2 title fights, crazy. Like, he always looks like Play-Doh afterwards. But he had heart. He didn't quit in the fifth match. In the fifth round, he looked crazy in that one. He was out there. Actually, he was doing better in the fifth round than he was in the fourth, which was crazy. So he just wasn't giving up on himself. So I'm not sure what's next for Brian Ortega. I think he can take on a lot of the top 5 guys and end up right in the title shot ever again. I think he could. And obviously, it looks like Max Holloway, if he beats Yair, which is a big possibility, we're going to see him and Volkanovski again. But if not, and Yair wins, and it's Yair and Alex Volkanovski, that'd be a fresh matchup, and that'd be cool to see, because I do want to see Alex fight different people. But yeah, that's really it. That's all I got to say. UFC 267 is coming up October 30th. Make sure you see that with Jan and Glover Teixeira headlining that one. So let's do this. Keep on watching all these fights. Keep on staying tuned, and remember to enter the nerd.